We're joined today by Steve Milner of Gen 2 Fund Services, Howard Weiss of Castle Harlan, and Cameron Hillier of Matlin-Patterson. We're talking about the fact that LPs are now increasingly interested in learning about the integrity of the back office of the private equity firms with which they partner. Let's talk about a really important, sign that there is a strong back office, and that is the consistent accuracy of the information that is given to the limited partners. Maybe starting with a question for Howard. Should limited partners be asking their GPs, can you verify how accurate and consistently accurate this information is that you're giving me? Given that A, private equity math is very challenging, and B, every single partnership has its own rules for calculating that math, and you're someone who deals with that math on a daily basis.
Well, look, I think they have every right to, to determine whether the information we're giving them is accurate. But as you point out, this is not only a math. A bigger part of it is understanding the limited partnership agreement, understanding how IRRs are calculated, understanding how a waterfall is done, understanding how fees get charged inside the waterfall. And I think that when you present that to the limited partner, then they're going to ask the questions. For them to come in to find out if your Excel spreadsheet or if your software package, adds the numbers right, I think is really going to be missing the point. But that's going to be the forest from the trees.
Mm-hmm. Cameron, are you finding that LPs increasingly are interested in sort of how you make sure that all the information that you provide to them is accurate?
So I think even outside of the so-called private equity math, I think any small mistake really has the potential to really harm a firm. And it reminds me of sort of a Warren Buffett quote where he said, "It takes 20 years to build a reputation, and 5 minutes to ruin it." So I think there's two things to consider here. One is what the people and the culture of the firm, and two, your controls and processes. On the culture front, you can't monitor everything that happens in a firm. So, but you can control the culture of the team. So we try to bring together people who are thoughtful. Have strong intellectual curiosity, have all the sort of personal characteristics as well as the professional characteristics to sort of be part of the team. And so when people know when to elevate an issue, or that there may be an issue, that it does get appropriately elevated, that sort of mitigates risk for you as a firm.
And that's a very good point, because in my office, we're not a big office, but we do have a half a dozen people, and nothing goes out with someone else without someone else checking it. And the person who's checking it can be junior to the person who did the work. But you need another set of eyes, and the smell test is so important. So much can be found because there are times when someone can walk in and show me something, and I'll say it can't be right. If the IRR was this 3 months ago and nothing changed, it can't change by that much. And that's the importance of checking the numbers.
People trust the sponsors to manage their money, and one of the ways that trust is manifested is the information they're getting accurate. And if there's an inaccuracy there, you can appreciate how one's mind can start to wonder, well, if that's not right, what else isn't right? And no one can go down that path today. And so I think all good firms have to have a very rigorous, we call it quality control, but it's exactly as Howard and Cameron described it. You need a culture that says nothing's going out of this firm without us really taking a good hard look at it.
What are some examples of types of information where even a small mistake can end up having repercussions that could last for a long time or cause reputational damage? There's IRR calculation, there's waterfall. What are some other examples of accuracy problems that would be regrettable?
I thought of one big inaccuracy that we discovered, and it was nobody's fault. We had gotten information from one of our limited partners, and their IRR calculation was vastly different than ours for a short period of time. And for a quarter, one distribution can make a big difference. And we were concerned, and again, we have our numbers, they have their numbers. We got their numbers, and we were able to find out that, when we sent out the money, 2 days before the end of the quarter, we took it out of our capital account. They got the money a day into the next quarter, so they were not including the funds in the quarter, but they were using the lower capital account. So that was a major discrepancy, but the client was mistaken in the way he handled it. But that happens.
I'll give you a little levity. So a fun one that we got to see. We were pitching a client. The client ultimately decided that they wanted to do the work internally. It was a brand new fund. It was their first capital call. And one of the partners in the firm delegated the responsibility to make a capital call to one of his assistants. His assistants proceeded to send out a capital call for 100% of the money.
Of the fund.
Of the fund. So the entire fund was called day one. Clearly a mistake. The good news is we won that assignment shortly thereafter. So.
I think from an LP's perspective, being able to look at something like your valuation policy and how consistently that's applied over time gives a pretty good insight into how credible you are as a manager and how you compare to other GPs. So how, what is the consistency of your evaluation approach?
And once in a while you'll find the Wall Street Journal will write a piece because, as you know, there is more and more club deals being done where there are multiple sponsors investing in a similar deal. And an LP may actually be invested through multiple sponsors in the same company. And to Cameron's point, you want to make sure those valuations are consistent. We at our firm encourage our clients to talk to their co-sponsors to make sure they are all consistent, because that makes for a good press, and it's unnecessary. I
think you're going to see valuation firms that are built around, there shouldn't be two firms that have different valuations, or even whether the CFOs need to reach out to one another. There will be a valuation that will be done by an independent firm, again, because there's going to be so many more people and parties involved in this business as it grows. You don't see that in the mutual fund business. You don't see it as much in the hedge fund business. Why would you see it in the private equity business, to your point on the continued evolution?
Final question, and that is, as the requests for information continue from investors to their private equity partners, and as even sort of ad hoc reporting becomes much more common, is this going to put strain on the infrastructure of private equity firms, and might that lead to more mistakes or greater frequency of inaccuracies, because these teams that were designed to respond to far less frequent requests are now getting far more?
Well, I think it's already creating a strain. The volume of requests from all LPs is just exploding. And it's not just only on your quarterly valuations, but also I want to see every underlying portfolio company metric. And so there's not really a consistency in solution to that, right? So I think what we're starting to see now is a software-driven solution to this.
Increased inaccuracies are unacceptable, so that's off the table. But Cameron's right, we're getting inundated with requests, and that's what we're there to do. And we do it. And Steve probably will be a beneficiary ultimately to a lot of that.
Requests have grown exponentially, David, in terms of the number of requests, the different types of requests, and I don't see that abating anytime soon. And the manifestation of that is we sometimes get called in, not by the CFO, but by the CEO of a firm who says, I have a great CFO. I want them to go out and help us work on our portfolio companies. I want him or her to be thinking strategically. I need them to interact with investors, but they are stuck behind a mound of paper in their office and they can't get out. And so that's one of the manifestations, is they just can't get, they're chained to their desks and they're really not able to provide the value to the organization that they otherwise need to be performing. And so that's another way that we're starting to see this increased request of information and the effect that it's having on organizations. Gen 2 is a third-party private equity administrator. And basically what we do is we work with private equity funds to support their back office specifically. We're the folks who take care of reporting to investors, whether that be financial statements, capital calls, distributions. We keep the accounting books and records for the firm, the official records of the firm. We maintain the investor database. We're the folks who do the allocations. We can prepare, and oftentimes do prepare, the waterfall calculations. And we support, in most cases, the CFO or the person within the organization who's responsible for these things. So we bring a platform of people, process, and technology, and we bring that to our clients.